Hello and welcome to episode 77 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all of the things Nintendo. My name is Kevin, and with me this week, fresh from his bonus episode, is Harrison. How you doing, Harrison?
Yes, and just as a reminder to any new or returning listeners, we've had Kevin's done a bonus episode in the past couple of weeks, and I did a on Tears of the Kingdom, and I did a bonus episode last week, meeting with the creator of a game called Bug and Seek, which is available on Nintendo Switch. So check that out, and I think we got some fun ideas and some fun bonus episodes coming very soon. So, um,
Yep.
make sure you keep following us.
I think I'm going to do one for Thousand Year Door. I've been taking notes during this playthrough, and I've got some thoughts. So I think I'm going to end up doing one for Thousand Year Door. Won't be as long as the
And
Tears of the Kingdom one, though. I had a lot to say about Tears of the Kingdom.
yeah, right, and great job with that. And I think I won't say the title, but I think in September or I mean October, me and you are going to collab on another game, and we'll kind of leave that there. So yeah, we have some fun, um, extra content, especially when there's not as much going on in the Nintendo world. Have you played anything new this week?
I've been playing Animal Crossing and Thousand Year Door. Really just kind of sticking to those right now. I haven't had a lot of time, just because a lot of my wife's going to Brazil. She's from Brazil. She's going back to see family in a little bit. So we've been working on that. And also planning our vacation together in a couple of months. So a lot of focus on that and not so much playing video games this week. I did have I did have a text with Sean where I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Uh, I'll bet if I just stuck to like first party Nintendo, um, between Mario, Zelda, Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, Metroid, Star Fox, Animal Crossing, I could probably just play that stuff for the next 10 years because there's so many things in each of their libraries I haven't played yet on top of new releases coming out. I was like, if I had to, I could probably stick to just that.
I could as well. But I could most likely say that about other other games. Like I could probably play video games and not play Nintendo for the next 10 years. I wouldn't be happy about it.
Yeah.
Like I'd be very, very upset about it. But actually, if Nintendo stopped making games tomorrow, I would say, okay, like now is my chance to play like all of those JRPGs or
Yeah.
whatever other games I I
I
never ever I never ever played.
I think it's
Um
the current like Nintendo marketing is getting it's doing a very good job of like raising awareness of their past franchises and getting me like, oh, now I want to play the Mario and Luigi series, which I never really played. Paper Mario I played sporadically, but now that I have Thousand Year Door, I want to go back and play, even though people say they're not as good, I want to go back and play some of the Paper Mario games I missed. And same thing for like I don't know, like the Twitter keeps talking about wanting remakes of Star Fox Adventure and Star Fox Assault, I think it was called. And now I want to play those because everyone's talking about how good they are. And I've actually played most of Star Fox Adventure. So that's kind of one that's just on my list of like, you know what? You never really finished this game. You should go back and finish it. So I don't know. And Metroid's everywhere right now. So like Nintendo's doing a really good job of keeping me focused on that stuff.
yeah, seventh year, I can't believe it. Despite like not being so focused on Nintendo games lately, I was just thinking yesterday, there's some games or like do I want to finish Tears of the Kingdom before Echoes of Wisdom comes out, because do I really want another Zelda game I didn't finish when another Zelda game comes out again, you know?
Well, I
Uh
would say this is like I might have said this in my review, I don't know, but I wouldn't rush through either one. I know you've already played Breath of the Wild, but if anyone listening hasn't, like I don't advise like playing Breath of the Wild just to play Tears of the Kingdom. You know what I'm saying? Like rushing through it just to get like you should fully absorb the game. And I feel like Tears of the Kingdom's the same way. Like don't rush through it just to get to Echoes of Wisdom because there's so much in there. You're gonna want to put it like in a time frame where you can like absorb it all, you know?
yeah, and I think that's more likely, but I'll make an effort at least. You know, I haven't picked it up in so long, so I'll at least make the effort to try and pick it up and do some shrines and just see if I want to make progress on it before September, because I think this will be the one like day one game I'm going to play this year. And there's still Nintendo games that I'm adding or that are on my list. So we'll see. I wrote down I didn't survive the Steam summer sale, and I did something a while back. We did games that we've purchased multiple times. Um, I purchased a game yesterday that I've now purchased multiple times, but I've never played it before.
Oh, okay.
So
What is it?
so Witcher 3,
Oh,
because
I've done that with
so I
Super Metroid.
yeah.
Super Metroid I bought a bunch of times before I finally finished it. I think on Switch Online was the first time I finished it, but I bought it on like every previous system.
Yeah, I have it. I actually have. It's one of my only physical Switch games, and I've never played it. I just never got around to it. But with the Steam sale, and Steam, it's pretty wild that discounts are given depending on which country you're in. So Thailand has one of the highest discount rates. So Witcher 3 and all of the DLC was like $8. So I was like, man, like I know at some point I want to play this game. Like and I know on my Steam Deck it's going to be way better, and I don't I have all the DLC already, so I can just play it. But I also bought Batman Arkham Knight for less than $1. I mean, that's no extra discount, no cheating, nothing. That's just like, like 90% off. Arkham Knight ended up being like 90 cents.
Yeah,
So
some of those
I
sale
don't know.
prices are ridiculous. Like I remember you clued me into the ukulele 2 I got for like I think it was $3. Like some of those sale prices get crazy. Where it's like it's almost like you have to, if you have any interest in this game, you have to get it now while it's at this price.
Yeah, and that's sort of my issue. I mean, I bought my Steam Deck last March, so yeah, a little over a year. It's been one of my greatest gaming investments, like probably second to Nintendo Switch. Uh, but man, I've bought so many games like in a bundle. Like I'll buy like a bundle of 10 games because one of the games interests me, but the bundle is cheaper than like the single game. It's ridiculous. Um so yeah, how about this Nintendo trailer?
Oh,
There's one big
yeah,
news item this week.
Emio, the big old mystery trailer, which this is one of the only times I see this happen a lot with big companies put out like a teaser trailer where the whole point is to get people saying, what the heck is that? And I'd say it's like 50-50 on whether it works or not. Sometimes it backfires completely. You know what I'm saying? And this one seems to be working. It's generating buzz for this little, I don't even know how long it is. It felt like it was shorter than 30 seconds. Trailer, if you could even call it that, where there's a man with like a paper bag on his head looking all creepy. It's got creepy lighting. I think he's wearing a business suit. I'm not looking at it right now. It's got like a weird smiley face on it when it cuts up close to the camera. And it's just like meant to be unnerving. So if you haven't seen it, that's the description. And it's just something really out of character for Nintendo to have what looks like it's probably for some sort of horror or survival horror or thriller or something like that. Definitely doesn't seem like their traditional family friendly um, outing. In fact, I saw one site report that in Australia the game's already been rated what would be our equivalent of an M rating. So
Yep.
yeah, it's definitely
Yep.
more of an adult, whatever the experience is going to be. Um, but what was your take when you saw it?
Man. Oh man. Like I just like anything new, I'm just like awesome. And there's just so many things, and I'll say it over and over again. I really have no idea what direction Nintendo is going to go in. Like what if Nintendo actually does start making like psychological horror? Like if they start making games for adults. You know what I mean?
What if Luigi's Mansion 4 is just like way darker than we thought it was going to be?
Yeah. So Emio translates to smiling man or something about smiling. I didn't write it down actually.
Yeah, that was
And
there was text on the screen that said smiling man when translated. At least that's what
oh,
the article I read said.
okay, so it is smiling man. There was recent speculation that it was this is the game from Bloober Team, which did the recent Silent Hill 2 game, because Bloober Team has been confirmed to be working on a Nintendo title, which is pretty exciting. Whatever that is, it's it's named Project M, but as of just I would say as of like just a few hours after recording this or before recording this, um, the editor in chief for Universal Nintendo, which we've referenced on here before, confirmed that it's not. So Bloober Team is working on some other title. This is not Project M. So pretty much we have no idea what it is. And I tried to go through my own mind and think about which horror games or what games could we consider horror in Nintendo. So you said Luigi's Mansion. That's everyone knows what that is. That's a horror game, but it's it's family friendly. Some people say that Metroid Fusion or Metroid Other M, for example, are horror games. We have. Did you ever play Eternal Darkness for
No,
GameCube?
I'm not really into horror in any shape or form. It's just like
Get Sean
uh,
on the phone.
yeah, Sean is the horror guy. I don't like horror comics. I don't like horror movies. I don't like horror anime or anything. I just like I don't know. I feel uncomfortable enough in day-to-day life that I don't need it in my media.
Uh,
I
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah.
You know what's funny though? It's kind of off subject, but the type of horror I'm kind of into is the reality horror because I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. So that's about as close as I get.
That is more scary to me than perhaps something like this could be. Depending on what this is. Uh, I heard Eternal Darkness was really good, and yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that Sean, the one guy that would actually have input on this, is not here today. Um, uh, so um, a lot of people instantly pointed towards Kojima but Kojima is working on at least 3 other games right now, so I don't think he has anything to do with this. So super excited about it. Anything new from Nintendo um, is very exciting, and I love the idea that it could be something completely different. 15-second trailer, we really had no idea. We really don't know anything. The other
Yeah,
part
and
I
it's
had written down.
oh,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, and it's just great that like the marketing actually worked because, like I said, I've seen these things backfire all the time where they generate this like, well, we don't completely know what this is yet, but it seems like it's working because sometimes it'll backfire where people get the wrong prediction in their mind of what the teaser is for, and then when it turns out to be something completely different, they feel like tricked. Like an example I can think of off the top of my head was Marvel Comics put out these teaser images that was just the number 4, and it was in
Mm.
the Sony like PlayStation font, which is also shared by the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. So a lot of people assumed they were doing a comic book adaptation of what would have been Spider-Man 4, and a bunch of hype got generated for it. And that turned out to be not what the project was at all. It was for some comic that J.J. Abrams kid was writing, that was just like a standalone comic story that had nothing to do with anything. And people were very disappointed that it didn't turn out to be Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4 in comic book form. So like that's an example of like, hey, we drop a teaser making you wonder what this 4 is about, and you all wanted the thing it turns out it isn't. So like it's a good thing this doesn't seem like it's turning into that. Like it's probably going to be some sort of horror themed video game. It's not like they're dropping this image and it's going to turn out to be the next 3D Mario or something.
Right. It can very well be that, and that's a great example. Nintendo has, I'm sure, done that in the past, where it's been underwhelming, whatever we thought initially, and I forget what I was going to say. Um, Anyways, yeah, this might be a game for the new system also, which is really exciting to think about. So I do appreciate the cryptic messaging, whatever Nintendo is doing, like whether this is something big or nothing at all. I do appreciate that Nintendo will sometimes put things out there in that sort of way where we have to speculate and interpret and, well, just kind of create buzz on its own. Like they know what they're doing with this. But yeah, having the art kind of stand on its own, it's kind of fun, kind of exciting, you know. We've been talking about a 15-second trailer for the past, 10 minutes or so. So um the other part I had written down is they released another trailer for Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate, speaking of comic books, and it's going to have a local co-op mode in this game, which was pretty much expected, but it's the first time we've had real news or gameplay on it, and that game comes out for Switch on July 17th. Are you going to be checking it out?
I haven't decided yet. I'm most likely going to, but I have such a back catalog right now. I'm trying to add as few new things to it as I can. Um, because as I've talked about on here, I'm trying to go into the new Nintendo system with no back catalog so that I can go back to the days where like the game I just bought is the one game I have to play that I haven't finished yet, and I can devote my attention to it. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think I'll end up getting to this one, but not on day one is probably what's going to happen. And that's just a testament to how much great Ninja Turtle stuff is out there now. Because when Sean and I started our Ninja Turtle podcast all those years ago, the franchise, I'm not going to say it was dead, but it was not nearly as booming as it is right now. So it's just like it went from something we could easily keep up with on a podcast to something we can no longer keep up with. So that's great for the franchise.
Do you think it's because of Ninja Turtle nerds?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We reminded
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
they exist. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, I think gameplay, roguelike, I think this game looks great. I think it'll be a great port. The music sounds awesome. I don't recognize any of it, not being a fan, but it all looks really nice. I don't think it'll be a full price game because of just how many roguelikes I play, but I for sure want to play this game on Switch. It looks so much fun. So
Yeah, and there's something about
there's
Ninja
that.
Turtles that feels right on
Were there any other
Nintendo.
news items this week?
Not much out there. It's a slow news period for Nintendo right now, and they've got a big old hole in their calendar, which I'm not the first person to say this, but a lot of people are anticipating that next month in August we might get some news about the Switch successor because they have nothing slated for August. So we've got and there are now people even debating whether or not they're going to have a September. That's another debate that I see raging on the internet. People saying like, "Oh, they've already told us what the rest of the Switch games are going to be," and other people saying they're not going to just stop making Switch games when the Switch 2 comes out. So I think there is going to be a September Direct, but whether there is or there isn't, it's interesting that they seem to have nothing at all going on in August. So we'll have to wait and see what's going on there. But yeah, it's going to lead to some slow news weeks. Luckily, we've got
I,
segments for our listeners.
I think it's Pokemon.
Could be.
I don't know. I don't know when they usually do Pokemon presentations, but I think it's Pokemon. Um, because we haven't really gotten any kind of news on this new game coming out in a while, or much of anything. So that's my prediction.
Could be. Anyone's guess is just as good at this point, for the most part.
Yeah.
But like I said, we do have segments here to fill in the slow news weeks. And this week, the segment we have is finally finishing our tournament for Nintendo's biggest mistake. It is down to the major two. Which was a bigger mistake, the Virtual Boy or the Wii U? I'm sure everyone listening has an opinion. I'm sure a lot of people listening have never even played a Virtual Boy, but they have opinions. Um, and yeah, it's just a very good, very I feel like inevitable end to this tournament. It's just like definitely the two projects that Nintendo wishes they could have done differently. So, what are your thoughts, Harrison, going into this match?
Well, once again, wait, don't say it, but Kevin, do you have a choice? Don't tell me though which one it is.
I do, but yeah, I won't tell. I do have what I'm leaning towards.
Okay. I'm not so sure, but I'm kind of leaning one direction though. Anyways, I put some game developer from 2011. They compiled all these great quotes. I won't read all of them, don't worry, but I did want to read one here from this is High Voltage software founder Kerry Ganofsky. He said he was quoted before the Virtual Boy comes out. I think it's a novelty. I'm not sure if it's going to make it or not. I'm a little baffled as to why it's only in red, which is a
Which
very funny.
we did discuss if anybody missed that episode why in red is originally they did want to make it full color, but I guess during the testing they said the full color made the 3D effect less impressive. It didn't have as much depth when it was in full color, and it also would have made the headset something like $600, which adjusted for inflation would be like a $1,200 system today. So um yeah, that's the reason it's not in full color. It would have been way too expensive. And they said the black and red gave them the biggest depth for 3D.
The next quote I had here was just talking about the $200 price tag, which is about $370 today, from what I checked, and uh, that's a way worse price point than the Wii U, especially if you compare it to a Game Boy or at the time, which was like $50 or $70. It's way worse when you start comparing it to other systems you could have at that time, especially since it's not a home console, which the Wii U was supposed to be a home console. So I think that's a point towards the Virtual Boy on being bad. Um, Next one, Steve Kent in same thing, Seattle Times said, people just aren't very excited about the Virtual Boy, mostly because nobody seems to know what it is. So that's
Well, it was weird too that Nintendo tried marketing the Virtual Boy as like a portable console when it's in like I remember ads with like somebody playing one like laying down in a field with like surrounded by cartridges and like the visor on their eyes, and it's like you can't play this thing on the go. You can't. You just
right.
can't. It's too bulky to carry around with you, and you need a table to set it up on. So it was just a weird decision to market it that way.
And it took Nintendo like 20 more years to figure out that accessibility is like the number one thing that you should have. Well, at least in the time of of mobile gaming, I guess. At least right now, accessibility is probably number one. For I would say just normal everyday. Play on the couch, play in bed, play on the go, just normal gamers. Uh, Next quote from Los Angeles Times. It says, resist the temptation to buy heavily discounted games or systems like Sega CD or 32X peripherals, Nintendo's Virtual Boy, or Atari's Jaguar, which is just funny to think about how many, like, if we try to do mistakes just in gaming, if we tried just doing it just like that, the 90s would just be full of mistakes. I mean, just tons of systems or companies that just did not last leading up to like the pinnacle of the second big console war. Uh, so, not the only mistake at the time.
Yeah.
Um, And last quote I had written down was he took it quite personally when it was not successful. New York Times talking about Yokoi after he passed away in 1997. Um, less than 2 years after uh, the Virtual Boy released.
Well, they sort of took it
Uh,
away from him because he also has said that he felt it wasn't ready to be released yet, but he was at that point, whatever budget they gave him, they were at release time. They were like, "Look, you've been working on this thing for years. You've developed it as far as it's going to go. We have to release it." And he was like, "It's not ready yet though." So,
yeah, and
I
he took it personally.
yeah.
He took it personally, and I think most importantly because he did pass away in a horrible accident a couple of years after this, and then of course he left the company. It's important to remember that it was one failure in a career that, I mean, I was trying to think about, you know he invented the D-pad, and like, what's the equivalent to that with another product? Like, I was thinking, like, that's like the equivalent of inventing shoelaces for shoes.
I was
Like,
thinking like the
like,
play button for music or
yeah,
or really anything. Like
yeah, yeah. Like, you would think, like, just the D-pad wasn't invented by anyone, almost that it was just there.
Mhm.
Like the play button, I guess.
Yeah, no, but most
Uh,
things had like terrible joysticks back then, like Atari.
right.
Or
So,
they
I
had
mean,
like or they thought completely outside the box and had like you didn't even know what you were looking at.
to to refocus it, I would say that his legacy or the fact that this game failed, I wouldn't put it. I wouldn't add it on to how much of a mistake that it actually was. I'm kind of putting Yokoi's legacy kind of separate from this conversation. I just wanted to bring it up because it's brought up so much with the Virtual Boy that this is the thing that made him leave the company or retire, however we say it. Um, for the Wii U, and I'll let you take over from here. I watched the initial reaction at E3, and I know last time you mentioned that it might have been overblown how much people thought that it was just an add-on, but they do say new controller in the trailer 12 times before telling people what the name of the system is, and they never showed the entire system, the entire console. They only showed the controller. So
Yeah, I've mentioned that
12
on
times.
previous segments we've done here is that like people thought it was basically a new controller for the Nintendo Wii. Like it was like a peripheral or maybe an add-on of some kind, but they didn't some most people didn't know it was even like an entire new system. So I'd say the failure on the Wii U was on the marketing end completely. I mean, people have talked about the name. They've talked about that initial reveal where they had to like scurry and like force together a second presentation like a week or two later to explain themselves, which is not a good sign. Um and yeah, the marketing for the Wii U is the biggest failure there, but in comparing the two, my pick, and not that we have to jump to our picks completely, but I definitely think the Virtual Boy is a bigger failure in that it was marketed pretty well for what it was. It's just what it was wasn't that great. You know what I mean? And it's almost the opposite with the Wii U where the marketing was terrible and I feel like the Wii U could have been successful with a few different circumstances, different name, different marketing, and if they managed to attract more third-party developers, which they had in the beginning, they lost them all. Because if you look at the launch, there's a lot of third-party in there. Uh, so yeah, the Wii U, and also think about this: like the Wii U has left a legacy of something Nintendo is kind of proud of because they've remade almost every successful Wii U title for the Switch. So they they're proud of the games, you know. The Virtual Boy hasn't seen kind of any sort of re-release or anything like that.
I don't know. Just the fact that this was supposed to be a home console is really throwing me off how I'm supposed to feel. Because yeah, I mean, as I you know pasted on here, I mean, clearly before the Virtual Boy was released, I mean, I skipped over retailers saying that, oh, I might carry a couple of Virtual Boys for like the novelty, but I don't really plan on it selling very well. Whereas like the Wii U was coming at a time where I think not so many people were too sure about Nintendo. I mean, is the Virtual Boy less of a mistake because it's not a home console and because we had Game Boy and Super Nintendo and pretty soon we had N64? I don't know.
We'll never know.
Yeah, I'm kind of I was leaning kind of in the Wii U direction. I mean, I think like even like the initial reactions to it are like pretty lukewarm. And I think it's just a lot of people being nice because it's a Nintendo presentation and they're going, "Oh, like you can put the Wii U on the ground and play golf," and um I would say one big positive though is that the Wii U, it did I forgot how much it did. Like it does like screen mirroring, video calls. Of course, you can like it has a web browser, of course. Um, there's like it almost feels like they were trying to create like a tablet or something that just did everything. Whereas when they released the Switch, they said we just need to focus on really, really good accessible games. And that's the way we're going to thrive. We're going to just focus on making really good Mario and Zelda games and making sure people can play them, and that's how we're successful. But again, I don't know if the success of the Switch makes the Wii U a bigger mistake. So what do we do, Kevin?
It's hard to choose. It's just so hard to choose. I can sort of see where you're coming from though. Cuz like there was more at stake with the Wii U. You know what I mean? And I think you might be
Yeah,
turning me here because the Virtual Boy is almost a 64 disk drive situation where, it wasn't the main console at the time. Uh, and it was another thing where they were like, okay, just release this and we'll recoup whatever money we can. But I mean, they supported it for only like 6 months, I think we said, before they discontinued it. So they clearly didn't have a big future planned for the thing. They didn't even try to get like a second wave going, where they like dropped the price. They just kind of like gave up on it. So
right.
yeah, I could see the Wii U being a bigger disappointment from that point of view where I mean you know what it is too, like have you seen that graph that shows how much the Wii sold and how much the Switch is sold and then the Wii U is in the middle there with something like 13 million consoles and,
Sure.
and it's just sandwiched between these two giant bars. It's like to fumble the following you had with the Wii that badly. It's a miracle the Switch recovered. So yeah, I could see the Wii U being the answer. It's just like there's no good answer for the finale of this tournament because it's like any one of these things we can say like, yeah, the Wii U was their biggest mistake, but some great games came out of it and I still play mine. If I said the
Yeah.
Virtual Boy, I'd say, some great games came out of it. Not as many, but only 14 were made total. So it's hard to compare.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, again, if we're talking price, I think Virtual Boy bigger mistake. If we're talking like which one was the bigger risk, I think Wii U was bigger mistake. But if we're talking games, okay, yes, the Wii U had much more games, but they didn't have a Zelda title, which again, I've said on here, it's never going to happen again. I guarantee whatever new system comes out, we will have a new Zelda title within those first couple of years
they
because
didn't
of
have a 3D Mario either. Like they had Mario
yeah,
3D World, but that doesn't really count. Like they didn't have like a traditional flagship Mario title.
yeah, yeah. And just I think the fact that Nintendo leans so much on their titles for the success of their company, which that's going to be true more than ever now. And they knows that because they know that like in the future, people are going to have options to play these third-party games many, many more ways. So the one way they really keep people focused is by releasing good Nintendo titles. So I think for games, I would have to say Wii U is a bigger mistake. Even though Virtual Boy only has what 14 titles, you know, it just yeah, Kevin. I think I'm going Wii U.
I will agree. I will agree.
Yeah.
It's just it's like a sad ending to this tournament that it boiled down to the Wii U. I was kind of holding out hope for that system, but it really is the system that it's probably the one thing Nintendo wishes they could change. If they could change one thing, they probably would say we'd go back and fix whatever we could with the Wii U and make it more popular. So yeah, it's almost a shame because it's a decent system that they weren't able to convince people that it was a decent system for its time.
All in all, we would not change the past. If that means impacting what we have now, I don't think we would change anything. It's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate that like the GameCube didn't sell as well as like the Wii or like the N64. Um, but it did lead to the biggest mistake, I would say, led to Nintendo's biggest success by far, which is the Switch. I think I have to
And the
leave it at
Switch
that.
2 to come soon.
Huh. Wow, we did it. So that was one, two, three, 11 weeks of this coming to a close. So good job to you, Kevin.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to take that long. I just knew we were going to be heading for some slow news weeks. So I wanted something to put in for a while, but we got other segments planned, and they're not all going to take 11 weeks to do. So look forward to that, listener. And in the meantime, we got a spotlight to shine on two very good Nintendo games, some legacy titles, the Punch Out series, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and Punch Out, released in 1990 as the one we're going to talk about today, featuring Mr. Dream. So 3 years in, the Mike Tyson um, licensing expired, and they rebranded it to Punch Out, featuring Mr. Dream on the Virtual Console and NSO. That's what it's labeled. But we all know the original was Mike Tyson's Punch Out in '87, and then you had that in 1990. And then also you had the Super Nintendo sequel, Super Punch Out, less complicated. That was released in 1994 in North America. Wasn't released until 1998 in Japan. For some reason, they didn't get this title until it was released as part of a Nintendo Power service in 1998. It allowed users to download a game onto a rewritable flash RAM cartridge at these kiosks they would have places. And that was a game that was available for that service. So Japan didn't get this game until 98.
Yeah. The legacy of these games are quite interesting. Just looking at the timeline of everything, Pu- Punch Out, or I guess we're putting these together. Mike Tyson's Punch Out and Punch Out. It sold over 3 million copies and over 2 million in its first year, and it is the 17th best selling Super Nintendo game, including everything, including all pack-in titles. And if you look, everything above Punch Out is either Marlda, Dragon Quest, or a pop or a sports game that was really popular in Japan as well. I said Super Nintendo, I meant Nintendo. Sorry about that. So it, yeah, I mean, it just sold very, very well. And I think for sure the name and likeliness of Mike Tyson gave this game its cultural impact and makes the game still popular today, or makes people still discover this game today. But it's quite interesting, though, that Mike Tyson, uh, he fought 15 times his first year, And if you ever want to go back and watch, you can watch Mike Tyson's first year of boxing in like an hour because most of his fights are less than like 2 minutes, you know, and he was basically like knocking people out and then fighting, 3 weeks later. But he won the title, he won the belt in 1986 when he was 20 years old. Mike Tyson's Punch Out comes out in 1987, and this is just like one of the peaks of boxing. I mean, you pretty much have one of the biggest athletes in the world as the cover of your game. So it just, I think at the time was just, it just made the game very, very cultural. It just made it very, very popular. But it's very interesting that he ends up losing the belt to uh, Buster. What's his name? Buster Douglas, and he ends up going to jail in 1992. So there's still speculation, still today, that Nintendo stopped working with Mike Tyson because he went to jail. It's not true. He ended up losing the title. His contract expired, and then he went to jail a couple of years later. And I think perhaps Super Punch Out didn't do as well because Mike Tyson was still in jail when that game came out. So, yeah, just a very interesting legacy for this game.
I was always interested in
I
the fact that I think it's weird that the legacy of the NES version seems to like eclipse the Super Nintendo game, because this week playing them both back to back, I feel like the Super Nintendo version is far superior. Why don't more people talk about Super Punch Out?
Super Punch Out, I think, looks amazing if you consider the system that it's on. I think it's one of the best looking Super Nintendo games. I I didn't like the characters as much, and I didn't connect with it as well as I did the Nintendo one, and that might be because I played the Nintendo one a lot more.
Yeah, you've got a point there. The original ones, the original characters, like, everybody knows Glass Joe. Uh, everybody knows the characters from the first one, but like the Super Nintendo one, you've got Little Mac, who's made recent appearances in Nintendo games like Smash Brothers and stuff. Um, Glass Joe comes back, so he's a return character, but um, yeah, there's a lot of forgettable characters in Super Punch Out.
There's 17 characters, which is a lot, I thought. But, this is one of the situations where, 17 is a lot, even though they have Nick Bruiser and Rick Bruiser, who are pretty much the same character. I think they should have done 8 characters and maybe put their focus more in the, like, I wanted more game modes. I wanted more story. I just wanted just more of a connection to this game. I like the pacing of Super Punch Out. The fact that you're playing just one round, actual, and it's actually 3 minutes instead of like a sped up 3 minutes. So the pacing is nice. I wanted more from that game at times. So I did put the NES Punch Out above Super Punch Out, uh, despite thinking that it's a great looking game.
Remember when Captain N, the Game Master, the cartoon, turned King Hippo into some kind of weird troll monster? Because he's not that at all in the game.
Oh, yeah.
He's just a normal heavyweight fighter, and they gave him like weird. First off, they made his skin blue, and then they gave him like these weird like fang monster teeth, and I don't know, it was just weird.
And in the NES Punch Out, they really lean into Rocky as well. Like they have like the Rocky like jogging scene where they're
Yep.
I don't know which lake they're jogging in front of. There's speculation on what it is. But yeah, it would have been. I would have liked it if they would have just added more of a story element, perhaps to a later title. If they leaned into more of like like you start out weak and you train up, and then you lead up to this big fight. Then I might have more of a connection to some of these characters. But for that, I think I have to lean more towards the Nintendo one, and it might be for nostalgia. It might be.
I think I just played the Super Nintendo one more growing up, believe it or not. It was definitely a weekend rental multiple times for me. I never owned it, but I'm leaning more towards that one as a favorite. I ranked them both, in the middle of my rankings. They're not like at the top or anything, but where did I put them here? I'm trying to find it. Where the heck did I put Punch Out? Oh, here it is. So I lost it again. Good radio. I know. Gonna have to control F this. The list is getting too long. Okay. So
Got it.
I put them below the Dr. Mario games and above Fire and Ice on NES. And I ranked the Super Nintendo version at 32 and the NES version at 33.
Oh wow, I was pretty close. I had NES Punch Out at 29 and Super Punch Out at number 30. Yeah, I didn't know how to separate those really, but it's sandwiched between Metroid 2 and Harvest Moon 64. Um, who would you recommend this game to? Who do you recommend these games to?
It's funny because I remember growing up, the NES version, I I never understood. Maybe I was used to no, because I wouldn't have even had Street Fighter yet, so I don't know why. But I wasn't used to trying to figure out that there's supposed to be a pattern, and that each enemy has like a tell and then a weak point, and that's kind of the formula of the game. And I was just never any good at it. And I didn't figure it out until the Super Nintendo version. So I don't know if that's something that gamers are smarter about today. But back in the day, I had no clue how to play the original Punch Out. I was terrible at it. I probably game overed on Glass Joe a few times. Um, but so I guess it would depend on like wondering if modern gamers could pick up the how you play these games. And if I thought that, yeah, people have figured out that that's how video games work now, um, I'd recommend them to almost anybody who's looking for like, a casual game that they can play for a couple of hours, something where they're, it's not going to dominate their schedule. They're not going to play it for a couple of weeks. But if you're looking for something to just like throw on and you have NSO, it's definitely worth, filling a couple hours with.
Yeah, I don't know if gamers are smarter now, or that we've always had smart gamers. But actually, I forget. I tried to pull up while we were talking. I was reading some review yesterday, and it just clicked with me that they said that you have to remember that Punch Out is not a boxing game; it's an arcade game, and then the
Yes.
game becomes a lot more, and then it becomes a lot more fun. And I was like, exactly. I was like, I wish I could have thought of it in that way, you
And
know?
I think as a kid I was trying to play it as a boxing game. Like I was just trying to land punches and not paying attention at all to any of the clues of like when you're supposed to hit.
Right. So, I mean, I wish I could take credit for that, but I think it's exactly what you said. And I would just add on to that, um, anyone who is a boxing fan, because a lot of people similar to me, have gotten into boxing, and then they've gone back and watched Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson's best years were before I was born. I didn't see him until I was, much older. So I think people all the time are going back and discovering these games because of the name Mike Tyson. What are we playing next week?
Yeah, let's spin the randomizer and see what our future holds. And next week, it looks like we are playing the Sega Genesis, what do you call these? Rail shooter Space Harrier 2, which is a sequel to an arcade game. I'm sort of familiar with this one. I know that it's one of those examples where Space Harrier 1 was never on a system. So you jump straight to 2 and it gets confusing that way. That was something Sega did, I feel like, more than Nintendo, is they would have home console versions of arcade games. And as someone who didn't go to the arcade that much, I was always like, well, where's the first one? So yeah, anyway, we'll be playing Space Harrier 2, a little run and gun rail shooter, and we'll have our thoughts on that next week. Have you played it?
Never played it.
All right, so we'll have fresh takes. I played it like a million years ago. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the episode. Let us know what you think Nintendo's biggest mistake is. Let us know what you think this new project they got going on with their horror franchise, Who is Emio? What you think of that. Let us know what you think about Space Harrier 2. And we could read it next week if we get it in time on our recording. So let us know at nintendotherapypod@gmail.com. Let us know on Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. We're pretty much on most of the stuff. So let us know there. And as always, keep in mind, we are Nintendo fans, not Nintendo experts. So just go easy on us if we got something wrong. And we'll see you next week for episode 78.